On this episode, Yuke and I talk with Jason Connor, who became a widower back in 2019 when his wife experienced a heart attack that ultimately took her life. Since then, he has been on the journey of reinventing himself and making himself the best version of himself so he can be a better parent, uncle, brother, son, and so on. This has ultimately led to him wanting to help others do the same that have experienced something similar to him. The path he's taken is becoming a grief coach and starting his own business to help others. Without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. So how you been?
I'm hanging in there. I'm living day by day.
Yeah?
One step at a time, huh?
Yeah.
Yep. One step at a time, 1 minute at a time.
For sure. So what do you do? Where do you live?
I live in Easton, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay. And what's your occupation?
Right now, mail carrier, but trying to get into the coaching
area. That's what you sent me. What was I saw your business card. What was it called?
Widow's Evolution.
Sorry. Widower's Evolution.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah. The grief coaching. I've never heard of, I mean, it makes sense that there's grief coaches out there, but actually never heard it until you said something.
There's really not. There's nothing out there. Like, after doing some research on it and come to find out from a friend of mine who has connections at the one hospital, and she said that there's only 2 that are doing it, and they're more of like counseling and therapy.
Mm-hmm. It got me thinking, and I was talking to Yuke after I talked to you, how you reached out, and I told him, I was like, man, that's another avenue that we could kind of say Fire Through Fog is we're kind of, I guess, grief coaching or grief guiding people through their fog is
kind of putting together a support system for them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And
you may not have it around them.
Yep. I had a conversation with someone, I forget who it was that I was talking to the other night. I said, we were also there kind of just to connect people with someone else that understands. Because usually someone can try their hardest to understand your situation and try to talk you through it, but they truly don't understand until you talk to someone who understands and has been through it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I found. Like, there were a few church groups that were doing something, holding events, and come to find out the person that ran it didn't know what we were experiencing because they haven't gone through it themselves.
Yeah. So do you have any kids?
Yes.
Okay. How many?
We have one son, and we have, for the last 5 years, we've had custody of her niece.
Okay. All right. So, if you don't mind, if you just want to kind of explain why you're taking the route of grief coaching and tell your story.
But yeah, my wife passed away, and after the last probably year and a half, just running through the motions of life, not being fully present, but just getting up, going to work, coming home, taking the kids where they need to go, coming home, just sitting here. And as I look back on it, like how the whole situation was handled, when I got to the hospital, when I got the call that she was being taken to the hospital, I got there, they took me into a room, locked me in with no windows, and which I understand, because now coming to find out that they do that so that way people, that when they do tell them the news, they don't go running through the hospital trying to go revive them.
Gotcha. Can you kind of, if you don't mind me asking, what's the story, how this all started? What, I guess, caused your wife to pass?
She had a heart attack.
Heart attack. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, it definitely came out. She had some health issues, but nothing to warrant cause for concern.
Is it something that ran in the family?
High blood pressure did, but she didn't have that. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
How old was she when she passed?
3 months before she was about to turn 51.
Oh, that's young.
Yes.
It's really young.
But yeah, like I said, she had some health issues, but nothing like she had a thyroid issue, and she had cataplexy, which is a form of narcolepsy.
Okay. Yeah.
But like I said, nothing to warrant concern. but she was doing what she needed to do to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was going back and forth with the doctor to just take the thyroid out because it wasn't working at all.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going back and forth. He wanted to do radiation, and she just wanted it removed. But getting back to where it was 4 days after my 36th birthday, I get a call from her work saying that she fell and she's being taken to the hospital. I call my boss and tell him I need to go, and by the time I get to the hospital, she's already gone.
What kind of work was she doing?
She was a cafeteria worker for the school district, and she was in the back doing dishes, and I guess she kind of passed out and fell to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to do CPR to revive her. The ambulance got there, and then her best friend followed the ambulance to the hospital. Again, after time went by, we were both just sitting here reflecting on it. She's like, they didn't have the lights on going to the hospital.
Mm.
So that tells me that she was already gone by the time they loaded her into the ambulance.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But I was literally just in a fog of just running through the motions of, all right, I got to get up. I got to go to work. Took the kids to school. And I had, like, before everything got shut down with all this pandemic, like, the kids were in school. So when I got home from work, that was like my hardest time because her car was still here. I'm like, oh, cool, she's home. And then as soon as I walked in the door, I realized that she wasn't.
Yeah. So going back, you got to the hospital, you said she was already pronounced dead.
Yeah.
So there was no really window or hope or faith that she would make it through this because, like you said, the lights weren't on. The ambulance. Okay.
Yeah,
So
like I got there, they literally took me back to that room, locked me in there, and then the doctor came back, said, I'm sorry, we did everything we could, but she passed.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked out of the room and shut the door again and left me in there for like another 15 minutes before the coroner came back and took me to the body to go ID it.
So in that 15 minutes in that room by yourself, what's going through your body, your mind?
At that point, I was trying to figure out how I was going to come home and tell my son.
Was there any other feelings you felt? I mean, I'm sure you did. Anger and confusion and questioning of why.
Yeah, I was all there, but it wasn't so much there because that was something that we had talked about because of our age difference. There was a 15-year difference between me and my wife. So that was something that we had talked about numerous times. So we were just being realistic with it, as she was probably going to be the one to go first. And because of her being older and having some health issues.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't expect it to be this soon.
Yeah. So I think that kind of gave me a little bit more peace with as far as that goes because of having that conversation.
You said this was like a year and a half ago?
2019.
2019. So okay.
September 11th will be 2 years.
Okay. Are you feeling like right now, do you feel like you're starting to overcome that? Is that why you kind of want to start into an avenue of, helping other people through this grief coaching?
Yeah, I'm at peace with everything. If I can snap my fingers and change it? I would. Absolutely.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Sure.
But on the same token, I'm at peace with it because I didn't have to watch her deteriorate knowing that there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a blessing and a curse at the same time. It was a blessing that I didn't have to watch her deteriorate. It's a curse that I'm now a single parent and trying to start over and figure out the dating scene again after 18 years of being married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, so the moment you had to go back and tell your kids, so at what age were they at this time?
My son was 15 because he turned 16 that November. And my niece was 13.
And I imagine they did not
12
take
going
it.
on 13.
I imagine they did not take it well.
No, they didn't. It hit both of them pretty hard because I worked long hours at the post office, so I wasn't.
You couldn't be there with them. Grief, yeah.
So she was. So they had a stronger bond together.
Yeah.
So I had to pretty much figure that out, how to bond with them and still be here and juggle all the new roles that I took on as
mom and dad.
Yeah, mom, dad, uncle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Maid, cook.
Right. Yeah.
Now, how are they today with it?
They still struggle with it at times. Like I still struggle with it at times.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're a lot more at peace with it than they were when everything happened. Like my son is now kind of, because he was on medicine for anxiety and depression, so that kind of made him numb to that whole experience of going through all of the emotions and coming out on the other side of them in a better place. So he's kind of going through that now because medicines weren't working and he was still very angry, and he's like, I don't want to be angry all the time. And this is the only thing that I'm feeling when I'm on these.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to his therapist and we took him off of it. And now it's everything's coming in, flooding, but he knows what to do because he's seen me do it. And he's taking it day by day. And he's like, all right, I see why you did this. It worked.
Yeah. So how was do you have more of a support system, close family that lives around? How are all of them?
It was my brother, my sister, my wife's best friend, Lisa, and who we've been friends with for the last 12 years. Like, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah. That's good.
Granted, they didn't fully know exactly what I was feeling or what I was going through. They just knew that I was hurting, and
they had to be there for you.
Yeah.
They knew they needed to be there.
Yeah. And they didn't question me what I was doing or why I'm doing certain things. They just let me do it. But they also didn't let me get too complacent in just being here in the house and not going anywhere or doing anything.
Yeah. No, kudos to them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Like my friend Lisa, she would come and hang out and we would just watch TV or movies, and she's like, all right, get in the car, let's go. Then we would go to dinner or a movie, and just to get me out of the house and doing something kind of structural, normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So if it wasn't for my support system, I don't think I would have been ready to start dating again when I was, and nor be in a position to want to try to help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely. What about work? How were they?
It was hit or miss with them. It was like some of the people were good, and then some of the people were just like kind of assholes about it. Like, oh, well, you're not the only one going through issues, so suck it up. And it was like, and they were like, the one supervisor I had, and she was like, well, you're not the only one who's a single parent here. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not a single parent by choice. You are, so don't try to compare the situations here.
A little different there. A lot of different.
Yeah. That's got to be hard to deal with.
But going back to work, that kind of gave me a sense of normalcy.
That's good.
Just because it took my mind off of things for a while.
Yeah.
So,
But I struggled with it coming home from work for probably the first 6-8 months.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Like you said, I mean, you're coming down the road, you see the car in the driveway, and you get excited, and then you step into a realization of,
Yeah.
that's not that's not her car anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And what kind of got me through that was coming home, and I would be home by 1:30, and the kids wouldn't get home from school until 3 and 3:30. So I had that time to literally just go through all of the emotions and just kind of lose my shit.
Yeah.
Emotional wise, like I would grab a picture of the three of us, and I would literally just sit on the floor against the wall, just crying and I did that every day, probably for 4-5 months, until it just became less and less and less and less and less until there were no more tears that were coming out.
Yeah, because I was sitting here thinking people have those routines and the muscle memory of the everyday life that they did have, and then all of a sudden it's just yanked out of your hands and arms, and then you got to deal with that, and there's really no other way but to. I can't think of a way, because one, I've never been through something like that, but two, asking you what are some things that you could have done, but you're telling us it's just grabbing those pictures and kind of just letting it go, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's going to be the hardest thing that anybody's ever going to go through.
Yeah.
And so many people just do everything in their power to avoid those emotions. Like, you go around it, over, under it, anything but to actually go through them.
Did you ever have a moment where you felt the need to reach out?
No, because I had once I lost my shit and I recomposed myself, I kind of knew that I had to get my shit together, because I have people that are depending on me to provide for them.
Yeah.
To put a roof over their head, to cook for them, I kind of really didn't have an option of going too far down that rabbit hole of picking up a bottle, because I couldn't.
Yeah.
So you think without the kids, it could have went a different way?
It very well could have. I would say, yeah, but I can also honestly don't know if that would have been the case or not.
Yeah, I guess you'd never be able to know.
But I can see why so many people that do go through this pick up a bottle, and it's because they don't want to deal with it, because they think once they go through it, that's it, it's done, it's over, it's not there anymore. But that's not the case. It is, but going through that has made me a better person because of that.
Yeah, and then just probably setting a great example for your kids.
Yeah, like the easiest way I can kind of describe going through those emotions and coming out on the other side is I kind of got to pick and choose all my best qualities and reinvent myself.
That's a cool way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, I became more compassionate and more empathetic, and while still having the staunch values of being a hard parent with high expectations of my kids, but also realizing that I can't be that hard ass all the time. I need to know when to back off and almost coddle them, but without coddling them.
Yeah. That's good on you, because you could have taken that opposite route and picked up the bottle, like you said, and grabbed onto all these other negative components and emotions and stuff. But I mean, good on you to choose that route.
Like, everyone asks me, like, all right, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I did it because I had to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I had kids and I have to be an example for them. I can sit here and tell them what to do, or I can show them what to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me, I learned more by someone showing me than, all right, go to the car and you're going to loosen the lug nuts to the left and take the tire off.
Yeah.
Some people can pick up on that and know what you're talking about, or like, all right, this is how you take the tire off. First, you got to loosen the lug nuts, and you got to jack the car up. Then you take the lug nuts off the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in education, or experience over education for sure. I mean, you can hold a piece of paper that says you have a bachelor's or a master's. I know this is totally off subject, but it's definitely what you're kind of saying is having that experience on stuff and seeing it, visualizing it, kind of rounding it about back to emotions. Like if they see an angry father that's belligerent and throwing stuff or being abusive or anything, like that's going to be a problem. But if they see a father that's compassionate and loving and caring and just taking you in his arms, like that's just going to be comforting and a safe place for them.
Yeah, exactly. And like too many, like I was very blessed with my parents being in a loving relationship. And did I have the best of everything? No, my parents did the best they could within their means.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were poor, we were piss poor, without a doubt. Do I take anything away from them? No. Did I know I didn't want that life, so I busted my ass to make sure that I'm in a better place than where they were at.
And that's
doesn't
awesome.
mean I love my parents any less. It's just I wanted better.
You learned by watching.
Yeah.
You wanted better by watching and experiencing what you went through as a kid. You didn't want your kids or your future kids to see that and to go through that because you had already done it. You were done.
Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely. Kudos to you.
And also to piggyback on that, this conversation has been coming up a lot lately with all these episodes I've been doing, is people could use that as a crutch. Like, this is how I was raised. This is what I had. These were my parents. This is how I'm supposed to be. Like, they use that as a crutch and just use that as their excuse of who they are now versus making the choices of wanting to be better, like you're explaining that you did.
Yeah. And this is kind of where Sean comes into the picture here.
Yeah.
Like, I started seeing his posts, and a lot of it was resonating with me. And then after I read his book, that kind of hit home for me. Like, other than the passing of my wife, and that was circumstances beyond my control, but everything else is, I'm in the position that I'm in because of the choices that I have made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that all ties into me reinventing myself as far as where I want to be and where I want to go.
Yeah. I love that reinventing term.
That's kind of the easiest way that I can describe it to anybody, unless you have gone through it. And when I started putting myself out there and starting dating again, I met a woman who I'm still in contact with. We've grown to become great friends, and she lost her fiance or boyfriend a month after I lost my wife. And we kind of met in January, and she was nowhere near where I was as far as going through all the processes of dealing with that. Like, she was still just running through the motions and not living life.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't have a purpose again yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where our relationship bonded over, was dealing with that. And then I asked her a question, and I asked her, what do you want? And she's like, I want to be happy again. And I've been helping her with that ever since. And we kind of now transition from there, from bonding over that to bonding over bettering ourselves, becoming the best versions of ourselves that we can.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And she's been the one that kind of pushed me into, she's like, I think you should do this. I think you should do the coaching thing. You would be really good at it.
So I want to get into that for sure. But I have one more question I wanted to ask you about, unless you have other stuff to talk about or want to bring up. But
no, I'm free, so we can bring up whatever you want to bring up, and I'll answer it the best that I can.
Awesome. Well, I was going to ask what kind of things currently right now today cause you to struggle? Because you said you still kind of have those moments, but for other people out there, to let them know what to expect and how to get through it, what are some things that cause you to struggle now, and how do you get through that?
Some triggers.
Yeah, triggers. Yeah.
Triggers, what you're asking.
Fortunately, that's something that is just going to be there for the rest of our lives, just because of how much of she helped shape and mold me into who I am.
Yeah.
Like anyone that loses a partner after 18 years, you're going to have memories. And it could be something as simple as walking into your bakery, like, oh, wait, she used to make that all the time. Like just a smell, a scent, a song, a movie quote, and it's going to come and go regardless. And it's just kind of, but once you go through all of the emotions from like dealing with them and actually going through them and feeling them, and they don't so much as become triggers as like, oh, all right, it kind of becomes like a sad, happy memory at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, because
if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, definitely. My grandfather, well, we lost my grandma back in December. She had a long fight, like her whole life with medical issues and everything. Cancer is one of them. But just, I put myself in his shoes and just thinking about, man, it's just like, it's gone. Every little thing, you walk into the house, it's grandma. And then we recently had a coworker that lost her husband at a young age. And I just put myself in her shoes, and I'm just like, man, every little thing is going to remind you of it, which ultimately led her to, she's not with us anymore in the company. So, because every little thing, I mean, you see his office, they work together and everything, all these little triggers. So, and now I'm putting myself in your shoes as you listen to you talk, and I'm thinking about me and my wife. Like, I'm looking around my house, and man, if I walked into my house and I saw her car, but she's gone, like that puts a knot in my throat and like gives me chills, because it just makes you want to stop and just go give your spouse or anybody a hug and just stop taking stuff for granted. Every time I have these conversations, I'm just like, man, I got to stop taking stuff for granted.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, my outlook and perspective on life definitely changed. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it stinks that something like this has to happen for people to realize that, but we're human.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of the reason that we started Fire Through Fog, is to kind of give people that daily dose of just a reminder. Let's not take stuff for granted. Let's appreciate what we have, count our blessings, because you never know. Like tomorrow, you didn't know. So just like that, you can sit here and attest to that and say, yes, it literally can be taken from you that quick.
Yeah. And I was definitely calling my pants down on that. That's for sure. We didn't have a life insurance policy, so I was calling my pants down. For as much as that was a conversation that we had talked about, and it kind of made things a little bit easier, I was still calling my pants down. And this is a conversation that I think every couple should have, especially if you're married and you have kids, and that's a conversation that we should have. Like,
yeah, definitely.
What do you want? Where do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated?
Definitely making will.
Things like that. And I think that definitely helped me with coming to terms and being at peace with it a lot sooner than someone who hasn't had that conversation. Like, all right, well, I don't know what he wanted or what she wanted. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
And I know it's a scary conversation to have. It is. Because it's not something that no one wants to think about that. Like, oh, yeah, I am going to die, but I don't know when.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have this conversation later.
Yeah.
Fortunately, sometimes later is tomorrow.
Definitely.
Sometimes later is an hour from now.
Yeah. But then with one of our previous conversations, it was a few episodes back, we had a guest on that she lost her father to COVID, and she just said it was just seamless, the process after, because he had everything set up for them. Her mom didn't have to struggle. They didn't have to deal with any stress about the process of dealing with, because he just had life insurance and everything. He had all that set up. So it just made it easy and seamless for him, which makes the recovery process a little bit easier too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's definitely something that needs to be foot stomped for a lot of people, is you got to have the difficult conversations, because you just never know.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone whoever goes through this is going to have an adjustment period, especially if you have kids, and like you kind of got to reinvent yourself, and kind of almost like you're spinning a plate with food on it and everything's all on one side. Now you got to space it out so that way it's spinning evenly at a steady pace, so that way it just doesn't topple over and make a mess on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, I had to figure out, all right, I need to have this much time to clean the house. I need to cook dinner. I need to pay the bills. I need doctor's appointments, therapy appointments, school activities, while still being myself and working and doing some of the things that I wanted to do and go. It was a kind of a juggling act, to like being pulled in so many different directions, until like, all right, I need to take a step back and recenter and refocus myself to like, all right, I'm good. I have everything on this, swinging on this pendulum at a nice even pace. I can like, all right, let's sprinkle in trying to date. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's do the next one. Everyone's going to have to figure that out, and because like I said, you take on more roles, and like I took on being mom and dad, aunt and uncle.
Yeah. Do the kids
clean, maid, chauffeur, Jay? I kind of had to like I said, reinvent myself to be able to handle all those roles and give myself the confidence. Like, all right, I can do this. All right, I'm good. And that can be overwhelming to some people. Like they see that like this pile of things that they need to do, and they don't know where to begin.
Do the kids open up? Do you ever ask them how they feel about it? Or are they able to open up now?
Yes.
That's good.
I ask them about it all the time. How are you guys doing? I need to know. And like, I literally let them ask me whatever question that they can possibly think of, and I answer that. Like, how can I trust them to come to me and tell me the things that they're struggling with if I can't trust them? And then they do come to me with like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need help. Or I blame her. I blame so-and-so for this because of the added stress of dealing with this. That's kind of where I'm at with that. And okay, well, and I have them both in therapy and counseling, and that's definitely helped. That's
good.
Yeah, that's awesome to have the kid. You know, obviously they were young, still young, obviously, but to see them process that in that way, and to be able to open up to you when they need to, that's an awesome trait to have. Like that speaks kudos to, or speaks to your goal. Like, you know, that should give you motivation more so.
Oh, also. Yeah, it absolutely does. And when I tell people that's what I do, they're like, how can you do that? I'm like, simple. There are so many books out there, how to be a good parent, and there's so many examples of bad parents out there, but all the books that are out there that are written, how to be a good parent. Guess what? 90% of them are written by people who aren't a parent.
They don't have the experience.
Yeah. And it's kind of trial and error. And like, I know they're going to mess up. I know they're going to make mistakes. But I also can't sit there and hover over them like, oh, don't do that. Don't do this. Because how are they going to learn? How are they going to gain that experience? Like, oh, wait, I did this before. If I do that, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I kind of give them enough rope to hang themselves to allow them to make their mistakes and be their stupid hormonal teenager selves.
Yeah. Because if you keep saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, like you're just going to make them afraid of everything and they're not going to want to do anything.
Yeah, it's either going to be that or it's going to push them towards that even more. So, like, are they going to do drink? Yeah. Are they going to try drugs? Yeah. Do I want them to? No. But I'm also realistic and like I was experimental and tried new things.
I guess I was more talking. Sorry, I should have rephrased that. I guess I was talking more younger kids. Like I heard someone talking about you got to let your kids give them a little slack so they can, like, if they're climbing a tree, don't go running to them and freaking out and saying, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to fall. Like that causes those kids to be hesitant.
Yeah, one of two things that happens. It's either they become very afraid of doing anything or that pushes them to that
for sure.
Even more.
Definitely as a teenager, especially when you have persuasive other teenagers and high schoolers and all that.
Oh, yeah. Like, take a 3-year-old into a candy store and put him in front of a piece of candy and say, you can't have that.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? He's going to go to it.
Yeah. So what made you
go in there and tell him, like, all right, you can pick up 3 things and that's it. They'll be happy with picking out those 3 things and be done with it.
That's true. That's a good way to put it. Do you want to add anything else about the specific situation? Because I kind of want to transition into your grief coaching. I'm interested in this.
Okay.
So what kind
of... I think we pretty much touched everything on my story as far as what caused me to be where I'm at now to why I'm trying to start this.
Yeah. And you seem like you're in a great place, and I commend you on
I'm definitely in a good place where this time last year, I was literally just turning the corner. Like, I literally started dating, putting myself out there to start dating again, and still trying to figure that out. It's life. It sucks. It kicks you in the dick sometimes, but all you can do is get back up and try again. And I'm not one that's going to sit here and make excuses. And if I fuck up, I own it. Hey, shit, that didn't go according to plan. All right, what's next?
Yeah, good on you, man. So what led to you wanting to do this grief coaching? At what moment, or was there just a specific time that you were just like, man, this is something I feel very passionate about that I could help a lot of people with?
It kind of came to me after just taking a step back and kind of replaying the events of that day, like how the hospital handled that. Like I said, they put me in that room. Like the first time I get because they didn't, like I said, they don't want people running out on the floor trying to go revive their loved one.
Yeah,
and that's kind of why they do that. But when the coroner put me back in there after, and it was like, all right, well, what the fuck do I do? And I didn't get anything from the hospital like, oh, hey, you might want to talk to somebody about this. You might want to get into therapy. Here's some great therapists that kind of deal with this. I didn't get any of that from the hospital.
Yeah, you would think there would be something in place to kind of help people go through something like that, you know?
Yeah, like
there should be.
Like being in that moment. Yeah, no, you're not. That's the last thing that's on the back of your mind. Like, oh, wait, I need to talk about this with somebody. Like, you're not there in that moment. But just having a person, just even their presence, be there. Like, all right, hey, it's okay. I know it sucks. Yeah, I know what you're going through. And then kind of transition into like, all right, when you're ready, here's my information. This is what I can help. What I offer.
Yeah, we'll go through the processes together when you're ready. Yeah.
Like, I didn't get that from the hospital, and I didn't get that from the funeral home, and it's like, you think they would have someone on staff to kind of, or something to deal with that kind of trauma.
Yeah, to me, not saying you ever went to that darkness or anything. It's like almost like, why do you think we have some of the suicides we have?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, I mean, people don't want to talk about, they don't think they have to talk about this stuff, but you really have to. You need to.
Yeah.
But, that's what I'm wondering.
And like I said, up here in my area, there's literally only 2 that are doing it. And I have St. Luke's I have LV, HPG or whatever. There's Good Shepherd. There's Coordinated Health. There's Hackettstown. There's literally like almost probably a rough estimate 50, 60 hospitals within a 30-mile radius. And only had to have two companies to offer something.
Doesn't seem right.
Like, I also don't know if these two companies have like 500 therapists or counselors on. I don't know, but to me, just having two companies, that's kind of low.
Mm-hmm. That's not enough.
No, and especially like, look, life is short to begin with. Like, we all have an end date. Do we know our end date? No, we don't. We just know that we have an end date.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And like I said, so looking back on that day and how they handled that, and then trying to go to like different churches, and really, person that was running it, I didn't have any experience or know what I'm going through because they haven't experienced that loss. So how can you tell me how to feel and what to do if you can't relate to me?
Yep. Like we were just talking about at the beginning with Fire Through Focus. I mean, the biggest thing, it's just all kind of surfacing right now what we are. And one of the biggest things I've seen is we're connecting people with someone who understands. They went through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like with my aunt, she lost her kid at 4 months to SIDS. But we connected her. We connected her with, there was a lady that reached out to me saying, I lost my son at, what was it, six weeks or something, about a year and a half ago. I was like, well, let me connect you with my aunt. And now my aunt just told me today they talked for the second time today or last night or something. And they're growing a relationship, and it's helping her. The lady from Washington State reached out to me and said, I've found myself again. And that was awesome to me. And I mean, I could have just been like, I'm done. Wash my hands with this. This is exactly what I want to do. But no, it feeds me. I want more.
Yeah, it definitely motivates.
You want to help them more. Absolutely. Trust me. I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely, it sounds like we're in the same space, and it'd be pretty cool to work together and whatnot. You can kind of push people to us, and we'll push people to you.
Absolutely. Not a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
Like my landlord, like the lady I rent from, and she lost her husband back in June, and she didn't say anything to me about it until last month. And I'm like, really? I'm like, and I saw her yesterday, and she was like, I don't know. I just kind of, what's the meaning of it? Like, I get it. Like, the first year is going to be the hardest because the wound is still fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, if you need to talk, I'm here. I'll come sit with you. I'll come have coffee with you. I'll help you, give you a better idea of what to expect.
That's good on you.
And she like, I might take you up on that. And like, her husband had Parkinson's, so for the last 20 years, she's been his caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was her purpose. Every day she had a purpose.
Yeah.
Now she feels she doesn't have a purpose. And it's like, I get that. It sucks.
Yeah.
You just kind of got to find your new normal and new routine and
your next purpose.
Yeah. And eventually it will get easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to go away. And it's something, because it's always going to be there. The memories, the thoughts, the moments that you guys had together are always going to be there. And you just kind of become numb to it.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't forget about it. It's just like, the pain's always going to be there, but it almost just becomes numb.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I saw this today. Even today, I read, I think it was, it was a lady lost her son. He hung himself. And she said that she got, I guess, some kind of therapy, whatever she goes through. And they told her one day that it may seem like that burden is overshadowing you, but you'll eventually get to the point to where that burden walks beside you instead of overshadows you.
Yeah.
And that kind of hearing that kind of, or seeing that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I know feeling that grief and that burden is one thing, but then when it's kind of walking beside you, it gives you a happy alternative.
Yeah,
you're
it
not
was like
alone. So
there was someone sent me a clip, and I'm sure I can find it, but it was basically a lady who became a widow with 4 kids, and she talked about dating again, getting married again, and the way she put it, she's like, "You're not moving on; you're just moving forward with
mm-hmm.
the memories of them."
Mm-hmm.
And because they taught you something, they taught you how to love, they taught you how to be in a marriage and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So you're taking all those lessons and you're now applying them to the new one.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the same, but it's going to be different. And it's going to be equally as good, but on a different scale because of everything that you learned from the previous one.
Yeah, you're not replacing. People would seem to think that you move on, you're replacing, but that's never the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if you mentioned it. What was your wife's name?
Morna.
What is her name? You said Morna. Morna.
Yeah.
Okay. So
like Morna, but like morning, but take off the ing
gotcha.
and then add an A at the end.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's a cool name. I've never heard that name.
I don't think I've ever heard it either.
Was it ever felt that you guys shouldn't talk about her or bring her name up or relive memories or anything like that? Because where I'm going with this is talking about it makes these moments easier. It makes it real. It makes it easier to recover, because I think what I'm learning is when people stick to themselves and keep it inside, it gets worse. They start getting these thoughts in their head. They start thinking, well, what if this? What if that? What if I would have done this more? They start having these regrets, and it just buries them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm noticing that. I'm thinking of one specific person now. I won't name names or anything or the situation, but I can think of it right now that what I'm saying is I truly believe is that if they're not going to talk about it, it's just going to eat at them, and they're just going to keep wondering what they could have done more to possibly fix the situation. You have to talk about it because you talk through it. You get it out of your body. It's literally just picture these words and these feelings just spewing out of your mouth. Like, they have to get out.
Like for me, I'm the type of person that I sit there and try to process everything. Like I'll sit there and think and overanalyze it and try to process everything and have play out every possible scenario. And then it's like, all right, I did that all the way up until even through my marriage. I'm like, I can't be like that anymore because it's going to put me in a space where I kind of put up my walls, and it's like I don't let anybody in. And I can't be like that.
For sure.
So that goes back to like me reinventing myself and like, all right, I can't do this. I need to be different. Like I need to be the best parent for me and for her. And how do I do that and still be true to who I am? And so it was like, this is where I kind of came up with the name. Like, all right, no, I didn't want to change. No, I didn't want to have to deal with all this. It was the universe's way of telling me that I needed to. So I kind of evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So with the whole thing, and then it's like, all right, widow's evolution. Like I'm a widow. Yeah, I'm a widower. So I just kind of went with a widow's evolution. Like you transform from being Jay and Morna, then Morna and Jay, and then all of a sudden now it's just Jay. Like, all right, I need to reinvent myself and reestablish myself as Jay, the person, Jay, the father, Jay, the man, Jay, the uncle, Jay, the friend, Jay, the brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what helped me push me over the edge to want to do this to help people along with, because it's also going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's somebody out there that could have gone through this 20 years ago. Like, hey, this is what I did. This is after about year 5. This is kind of what helped me to not trickle it back or go back to the beginning and do this all over again.
There also could be someone out there that's had this happen to them 10 years ago and they're still struggling because they haven't talked about it.
Exactly.
And this could be your opportunity to swoop in and allow them that outlet.
Exactly. And like, I've been very fortunate that being a part of the Den now for the last couple months. Like, I reached out to Dr. Nicole, and she's the one who put me in contact with you.
We'll actually be talking to her, I think, next Tuesday.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, reach out to him. He'll definitely have you on. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's when I reached out to you. And then I met another gentleman through the Den, Matthew Bronk. And he's kind of trying to do the same thing, but he's kind of gearing it more towards like people like me, the males of that, because they kind of feel like they lose their purpose.
Yeah.
Like,
well, men alone are just prideful human beings, so we don't need to talk about anything. We can get through. We can power through it.
Yeah. But me, I just want to help whoever's going through this, just because of what I went through with the hospital and not being locked in that room with nobody there. And it's like,
that's crazy.
No one should ever have to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know when you're in that moment, that's something you don't necessarily think about, but having a person's presence there, like, even if it's just to sit there and let them hug you or punch you, whatever, just so this way they're not bottling it up. They can just let it out and
that might be
that emotion and get through that and start the process.
That might be a good tagline for your business card. I'll allow you to punch me.
Yeah, I'll help you on the next batch.
Yeah.
I mean, kudos to you for sure. You know, I'm not just saying that to throw those out there. That's, you know, you experienced a pretty traumatic thing, but your outlook on it created a new path for you, a new purpose, you know. So kudos. And I think you've got all the motivation you need in your son, your niece. That
was probably by far the two hardest things I have ever had to do, was literally call her parents who were down in Florida dealing with her aunt's passing, and they're finalizing getting the house ready to be sold, and then coming home and telling my son. That was by far the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Could not imagine.
And like the two people who helped shape me were my dad and my wife. Like I literally met my wife a month after I turned 18, and I lost both of them due to a heart attack.
I'm sorry. Genuinely.
Like, I don't know if you guys were, I don't know if you were on the call last week in the Den.
Yep.
But Sean challenged us to do with Tim Grover's book, Winning. And the one question in there, are you angry at anybody? Like, I struggled with that because, I am. I'm angry at both of them because they didn't take care of themselves, make themselves a priority.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of here stuck trying to figure this shit out on my own with no books on how to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, but did that push me back to not wanting to do this or having no, it was, that's what I felt at that moment. And that was an emotion that I've never talked about or said out loud to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But that helped me in the process of, all right, I thought I was through all the emotions, but there was still something there. And now I'm good with that. And I still want to help people. And the hardest part for me is getting my name out there and getting in contact with these people, because it's like a fine line that I have to walk, because someone from the outside looking at it like, oh, what's this guy doing? He's being a scumbag and taking advantage of the situation and trying to make money off of it. But I also don't want to give it away either, because my time is valued.
Yes.
That's taking time away from my family, my kids. And so it's that fine line that you got to walk. And it's like, how do I navigate this without coming across and being labeled as someone, oh, that's BS. Let's go to a therapist. You'll be fine. Or, yeah, that's great. You can go to a therapist. Go to somebody. I don't care if it's me, or Dr. Drew, whoever. Just talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't avoid them. Just deal with the emotions.
Yeah, it's just you can tell them, I have the experience. I can tell you almost anything that you're going to that you're going to expect.
Yeah,
anything I can tell you what's going to.
It's a fine line.
Yeah,
like you definitely realize that because of seeing people go through it that are relatively close to you. But if I were to go and talk to your mom and dealing with the loss of her husband, and like, oh, he's charging like $60 an hour. Well, why? You're going to question that, like. So I can see both sides of the fence here, and it's like, all right, how do I do this without? And
it's hard for people to think past the fact that that's a scam. That's a scam, but this could lead to a better you. Like you said, reinventing yourself, being happier. Because who wants to sit there and be depressed and then in these dark times?
Yeah, exactly. So, I said, it's a fine line that I kind of have to walk, because, like I said, I can see why people would see that as like, oh, yeah, that kind of does come across that way. But talking to a few others that have dealt with loss are like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of hearing like, oh, you're so strong for getting to. You don't know me. You don't know what I'm feeling. Yeah. And like, I also don't want the sympathy. So yeah, they're going to want to pay and not necessarily have it be given to them.
Yeah.
So
it's at what cost do you want to give up for your mental stability, your physical, your spiritual, your social, your relationships? Like, how much of that do you want to give up? Because this is the service I'm providing to you to help you get out of these dark times, to be able to rekindle all of these relationships, your health, your wealth, your body, all this. Because if you're depressed and you're down, you're not wanting to do any of that. You're not wanting to improve any of that. It just drags you down.
Yeah.
Simple tagline is, what's it worth to invest in yourself?
Yeah.
That's
because it is an investment.
Yeah.
No, it definitely is. And like, and I kind of tell people, like, the few that I have been fortunate enough to help coach, just to kind of build my name and reputation a little bit. And, and I tell them, I'm like, yeah, this is a dark time for you. Yeah, it sucks, but some of the greatest things come from darkness.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And when they look at it and realize that, like, like, prime example, a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, goes in a cocoon. We don't see that process. We see the end result. Like when we start a garden, we see the beginning process of the seeds. We put them in the ground, and we see the end result. But we don't see that transformation of the seed sprouting and growing and becoming the end result.
Yeah.
You don't see the roots going into the ground and creating a base for that flower, that tree. You don't see that.
Exactly. Yeah. Every year in fall, all the leaves fall. We see them fall. We see the new ones grow back. We don't see them sprouting and growing, and they just kind of appear more and more each day until they're ready to fall again.
Yep. I like that analogy.
It's kind of like the circle of life, but other than the fact that we don't get to grow back.
Yeah. Well, I love the concept and what you're going to be doing, and I look forward to following you. And if you need anything from us, give us a call, reach out to us. We'll be there to help you. If I need anything, I'll reach out to you.
It.
Yeah. So I do want to ask one question. I think you've answered it pretty much about the reinvent yourself. But our final question is, what single advice would you give someone going through something like this? Or what is it to you that you built that fire in yourself to get through this foggy time? And you basically said, just reinvent yourself.
It's easy. Go through the emotions. Don't avoid them. Just go through them. And when you come out on the other side, you're going to be 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
You're not fully going to be healed from the void that's left, but you're going to have a new perspective. You're going to have a new outlook and perspective on things, and be okay with wanting to continue to live the best life that you can live, and go forward and wanting to help people. It will almost give you a new purpose, a new sense of direction, and a new meaning of life and new purpose of life.
Yeah.
Going through the emotions of dealing with that. And I mean it, like I said, for me, I grabbed the pictures and I let everything out when I was holding them. And I would sit there and talk to her and just bawl until no more tears were coming out.
Yeah, man.
That's probably going to be the hardest, but the most rewarding thing that you can do with this process.
Just soak it all in, basically.
Yeah. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. You're not going to want to do it. You're going to want to fight it. Like, why do I want to put myself there?
Yeah.
In which I can understand. You not necessarily want to make yourself sad or cry, but you kind of have to in order to get to the other side of that.
Definitely.
And that's probably the best advice that I would tell anybody that going through this. Like, it's going to suck. This is going to be the hardest thing that you ever have to do, but it's also going to be the most rewarding and fulfilling thing at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, again, appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing your story. How can someone reach out to you?
You can reach out to me through Widows Evolution on Facebook, Widows Evolution Coaching. My cell phone number is on both of those pages. And Widows Evolution at 908-763-1184. That's my cell phone directly. And if I don't answer right away, I will definitely get back to you.
Awesome.
100%.
Awesome.
Just leave me a message and say, I'm in the process and I don't know where to begin, and I will definitely get back to you as soon as I can.
That's awesome. We appreciate that. And if anyone reaches out to us with a similar story, you'll be definitely one of my go-tos.
Absolutely. Anytime, man.
So again, Jason, I appreciate it. And if you don't have anything else, we'll just end this one right here.
No problem, man. Anytime. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Hey, you too.
I appreciate your time.
I hope everybody enjoyed that conversation with Jason and pulled out a bunch of nuggets, just as many as we did. Some of the biggest ones is he has a great term, reinventing yourself when you go through some trauma like this. I love that because it's really what it comes down to. You have two choices. You either sink or float, live or die, basically. You get to pick and choose these new qualities of who you want to be and who you need to be. And it's kind of a cool concept. And I hope everybody took that out of it as well. Another big thing, which we've brought up in a couple of other episodes, is having the conversation right now about life insurance, a will, funeral plans, cremation, burial, all that stuff. Have the conversation right now. I understand that it is uncomfortable, but it is needed because you do not want to leave a family member behind or have a family member leave you behind with all of this stuff to figure out or nothing. It'll make the recovery process so much easier and seamless when they don't have to worry about this or that or money, finances. Just have the conversation right now. If you're listening right now, have it. It's going to be uncomfortable, but God forbid if anything ever happens, you will be taken care of, or your spouse or loved ones will be taken care of. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to the next one.